Wouldn't it be nice if you could just get rid of entropy? Just throw it out the window. Your body will stop aging. Food will stop deteriorating, right? You'll buy a banana and it'll be fresh all day long, all month long, all year long. It'll always be perfectly fresh. Well, I'm going to show you how to do that today. Side note, this is like pure sarcasm. But unfortunately, most people don't think so. We're going to talk about economics and money specifically, and even more specifically, the three functions of money. More specific than that, one of the three functions of money, which is the store of value. When economics really started to become a thing, there were some, economists, I suppose, early economists decided to categorize the functions of money. What does money do? Why do we use it? How do we use it? What is this thing? And they came up with three functions. Money has three functions. Originally, it was four functions, but later they revised it and figured out that fourth function really is just another way of saying a couple of pieces of the other three functions. Anyway, your three functions are: one, you've got the unit of account. What does this mean? This means you have something, a unit of account. It's a unit, right? Like feet or inches or seconds or minutes. It is the unit to account for the value of money. Okay. Second is a medium of exchange. All this means a medium, like paint is a medium of art, right? Well, money is a medium of exchange. It's what you use to make the exchange. And finally, my favorite, the last one, is a store of value. And what does this mean? This means that you can actually store the value. To give an example, say you're an apple farmer and you've got a bushel of apples. It would be much easier to sell those apples, get the money for it in value form, and stick it in your cupboard where you can store it, where it will not deteriorate, theoretically, right? Instead of having a bushel of apples, trying to store it, and a month later you have a a pile of prune, shriveled up little dried apples. So, a store of value. This is kind of where the problem begins, and it doesn't end here though either. It's a bit of an issue. So, store of value. Okay. So, what are we doing here? What is this purpose? Why do we want a store of value? Well, it's because you don't want to have to store a bushel of apples because it deteriorates. So, we've developed this thing called money, which you can store, which doesn't deteriorate. The idea is to sidestep entropy, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take value out of the entropic flow of the universe. We're trying to take this thing called value, and we're trying to just kind of rip entropy out of it. Okay, so entropy doesn't affect value anymore, so we can store it. Because in the value of an apple, if you had an apple, the value of the apple is the health, the energy, right? The life that it gives you. You can eat it, the taste. There's a lot of components that go into what we think of as value. When it boils down to it, all value really is sentiment. It's emotion. It's how you feel about things. And if you think I'm wrong, I would be more than happy to go down this road with you. But I promise you, value is the most ethereal thing that has the most real physical effect on our world that I think we have, that exists. Value is a non-existent thing. So, why don't we take that road just for a second? Let's talk about value really quickly. What is value? You eat food because it gives you life. It gives you energy to continue, right? It has value to you. Good food that's done well, that's properly, that's cooked and flavored and everything, right? Its value is that it tastes excellent. Like, in fact, people spend like $1,000 a plate at some restaurants for a plate of just perfectly designed flavor food, right? Its value is in the flavor more than it is in the nutrition. On the other hand, you have food that you eat for nutritious value, right? It has nutritional value. That is its value to you. But under both circumstances, it is all up here. It is that you have an attachment to whatever kind of value that is, whether you want that flavor or whether you want to live, continue to live, right? You don't want to start to deteriorate and weaken and die over a week's time without any food. That is the value. That is what you want. It is a desire. You want it for a reason. It is an emotional. It's tied into emotion, right? It's, like I said, it's sentiment. The I guess base unit of value is sentiment. You like to be able to get places quickly, so gasoline has value to you. Gasoline's value doesn't come from its inherent energy that it provides to the engine. It comes from your desire to be able to quickly change your location. That is the value of gasoline. So a store of value, right, is doing what? Well, we're kind of taking the real effect, right? The real effect of the apple, the nutrients that it gives us, the energy that it gives us, and we're mistaking it for an emotion, and so we're calling that value. We're calling it value. We think we're talking about the chemical compounds and all the bonds and all the sugars and fiber, right? But really, we're talking about how we feel about it, why we want it. But the fact of the matter is that its real world, how it affects real world is very real, okay? Just because you want the apple, just because it's an emotive kind of, sentimental thing that gets you to retrieve the apple and eat it, doesn't mean that it doesn't have a real world effect on you. I mean, obviously it does, right? Well, that's how everything works. So this ethereal thing called value has very real world effects. It really affects the thermodynamics of the system. All right. Now, when you're storing this value, we're thinking in our minds that we're actually storing something that matters, but we're not. We're storing something that only matters because everybody thinks it matters, which is why it matters. It's kind of like this Ouroboros kind of a conundrum that we're in. But when you attempt to sidestep thermodynamics by storing this value, okay, I mean, $20 in your cupboard is still $20, a month from now, 6 months from now, a couple of years from now. Never mind the kind of mild fluctuations in the value of the dollar. The idea is that it will still be $20. A year later, you can go back out. You can virtually buy just about the same amount of food with that same $20. Whoops. So, what effect does this have on the real world? That we are kind of stripping this thing away called value and storing it as if there was no thermodynamic effect. So we're trying to sidestep thermodynamics by storing this value, whereas the physical effects that it continue to have entropy deteriorate things, continues to have heat transferring all over the place, right? So what effect does this have on our real world? Does it have an effect? It does. And it's a really interesting dynamic that many people don't consider. Most economists I talk to say economics and physics are two totally different things. Like, how can you possibly say that? Well, how can you take a thermodynamic analysis of an economic system? It doesn't make sense to them, and it's kind of difficult to describe. But when you have it, just because economics is up here and thermodynamics is a little bit further down the rung, doesn't mean they don't interact. They're like in control theory, right? You have systems that kind of emerge from other systems, but they still have kind of this effect on each other, where the lower systems affect the higher systems, and the higher systems come down and affect the lower systems. It's this recursive effect. Everything is like that, right? So you can have thermodynamics and quantum mechanics sort of at the bottom. Thermodynamics really was designed to help describe kind of thermal systems, but has become quite a chemist's utility. And then on top of that, right, on top of chemistry, and you have cellular mechanics and cellular chemistry, and then you have like life sciences, right? You have how cells interact, how they combine into multicellular organisms and create larger organisms. And then you have organisms that have developed neural networks. And you have these neural networks that can get information from the outer world and analyze it and then react accordingly. So it goes from thermodynamics and chemistry to larger systems that interact with each other, to larger systems that interact with each other and analyze information, which then from that comes like psychology, sociology, network dynamics, right? How networks of humans interact. And from that comes economics. Economics is a very specific type of network analysis or network dynamics. So, yeah, they're deeply related. They can't not be related. I don't understand why it's so difficult to, really understand that. But I apparently it's something that just, a lot of people don't get, because I've run into a lot of people that just simply don't understand that these two things are not just related, but like deeply intertwined. So getting back to store of value, you can't sidestep thermodynamics. That's a fact, as far as we know, right? We are pretty fucking sure you can't sidestep thermodynamics. That you can't run time backwards. You can't run entropy backwards. You can't take a rotten banana and put it in a entropy reversal machine and get a fresh banana in 10 seconds. It's not something that happens. So in that, we are trying to, right? We are confusing actual chemical interactions and physical reactions that we find to be valuable with something that's not real. And then we're taking that and we're saying it's value and we're storing it for sometimes 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Sometimes even longer, when you have like a what is it called? A company that's been around for over 100 years, right? So, what happens when you try to do that? Because you can't sidestep thermodynamics, and doing this, attempting to do it, is going to have some repercussions. So that's kind of the basis of a lot of my research, and I'm not going to go into the details here. But my hypothesis is that it amplifies entropy dramatically. And I've got some of the simulations I've run so far definitely step in that direction. That's what they're showing. So I think next time we're going to talk about, let's do unit of account next time. That's the second most, in some cases, more than store value. But unit of account, let's do unit of account next time. So we'll do that tomorrow. We're going to talk about how fucking crazy unit of account is. And after we go through the three functions of money, we're going to start talking about different combinations of the three functions of money, like debt. We're going to talk about interest. We're going to talk about profit, tagging a profit onto something, and how that affects this whole system, entropically, of course. So, yeah, that is it. I don't care if you watch it or not. This is simply to get me back into the mode of talking, cameraing, making sure I don't clear my throat a billion times, and definitely need to watch those words I like to say, like and definitely. Yep. All right, see you guys.